Good afternoon and welcome to our 7th EU Knowledge Valorisation Talk. I'm Yannis Ayas and I'm a Deputy Head of Unit RTD C1, Policy Coordination and Urban Transitions, Unit Strategy, Policy Coordination and Urban Transitions. And I'm your moderator for today. I have the pleasure to guide you through this talk that explores new ways to manage intellectual assets and bring research to market. Universities and research organizations are the foundation of innovation. They play a crucial role in enhancing Europe's capacity building for transfer offices and venture builders. Further policy actions are foreseen with two forthcoming acts. As you probably know, it's the European Research Area Act and the European Innovation Act. For our discussion today, we have invited experienced professionals that will share their insights on what is new in the world of intellectual asset management in academia. They will present their tried and tested approaches, and we will discuss how to better facilitate collaboration, licensing, spin-off, and other forms of intellectual property transfer. Thank you very much for being here today, Elizabeth Hadzicek, Peter Orwell, and Breche Freinehur. Welcome. Before giving the floor to our experts, I invite you, our audience online, to already go to Slido. You see the Slido on the screen. Enter the hashtag EU Valorisation Talks to send your questions for the upcoming question and answers session. Without further ado, let's start into this discussion and introduce our first speaker. Elizabeth Hadzicek is a program manager at the Austrian National Contact Point for Intellectual Assets and Knowledge Valorisation, NCP-IP. This thematic national contact point was the first of its kind when being created 15 years ago, and now we're happy to see that he has added knowledge valorisation to its name and mandate. What has changed? What kind of support do you provide to the research innovation community today, Elizabeth? Can you please explain to us?
Thank you, Yannis. Thank you very much for inviting me and to talk about the NCP-IP. We are in existence for 14 years, and the program is a national program that's delivered by two agencies in Austria. That's the Austrian Research Promotion Agency, FFG, who I work for, and the AWS, the Austrian Wirtschaftsservice, which is the Austrian promotional bank. We have changed the focus of the NCP over the last few years with the introduction of the guiding principles for knowledge valorisation by the European Union, which means that we have used this new narrative to change the conversation in a direction that is more broad, that talks about a broader ecosystem, and we're using the four codes of practice to guide us through this new narrative. So the NCP-IP is set up, like I said, we're delivering it through two agencies. We are funded by three ministries in Austria. That's the Ministry for Research, the Ministry for Innovation, and the Ministry for Economics. And that gives us a really broad base for our activities, where we have also submitted together a proposal to the Council of Ministries that talked actually about knowledge valorisation and the task the NCP-IP is meant to undertake. And that again used the new terminology around ecosystem, citizen engagement, and valorisation more broadly. So we have this broad base of support with this proposal being adopted in Austria. And we see ourselves as an intermediary that serves the broad community in Austria. So we don't really have one constituency. We work for really the broad range of actors in Austria. And what we really do is try and partner with other institutions to help us deliver that. So we're working with the Austrian Patent Office, we're working with Austrian standards, and we're trying to get the experience not just from the two agencies that delivered the NCP-IP, but from the broader network in Austria, which we're trying to build. We have a collaboration, like I said, with ÖPA and us, Austrian Standards. And what we do with them, we deliver activities. For example, we deliver webinars, we deliver a lot of events. We have a lot of engagement, information activities we provide. And we have a lot of tools, and I think we will hear about similar tools from the other speakers today that are around contract templates. We have the EPAG, which is the Intellectual Property Agreement Guide, which has just had a new addition to it recently, the spin-off checklist, that is meant to give a legal framework in this often complex environment for academic spin-offs. And we have the other tools for information sharing, like a website, newsletter, etc. And what we've recently established is a quiz for knowledge valorization, because we often find it's difficult to communicate this quite complex topic of knowledge valorization, which can be quite policy-based, and it's quite difficult to actually sometimes translate it to the audience. And so we are trying to find tools that make it easier for us to work as an intermediary with this broad group of people to bring this message about.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for presenting the activities of the Austrian contact points to us. And it's really very nice to see that knowledge valorization is a central policy in Austria. And we're even more glad to see that that was due to the guiding principles for knowledge valorization that were issued in 2022. And it's very interesting to see also that the change of the vocabulary and introducing these new terms into the daily life of the research and innovation actors in Austria. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to introduce the second speaker. And before actually going into follow-up questions, because I'm sure that we have prepared already follow-up questions, and I'm sure that the audience will have also questions for you. But before that, we have Peter Orwell with us. Peter is the Lecturer Property Operations Manager at the Technology Transfer Office of Dublin City University in Ireland, called the DCU Innovate.
It defines the rules of engagement around the use of IP between industry and universities. It reduces the uncertainty around things like access rights to IP and state aid rules, which is something that people get very confused about. It supports consistent practice among universities when dealing with industry. The other thing we have, which also Elizabeth and Brecht have, are national model agreements. So these are NDAs, MTAs, collaboration agreements, licenses, consultancy agreements, available online for anyone to use. The advantage is that they eliminate any perceived bias from one party or the other coming in and owning the draft. So you're not having conversations about boilerplate phrases. You're just getting straight to the substance of the agreement. And we estimate that reduces deal time by about 25%. The key thing is that they are independently owned. Neither party owns them. So next is our IP tools. On the next slide. So we use AI. There's a frenzy about AI. I mean, you've hit on it. Everyone is talking about it, and it can be quite intimidating. There are things that people can do right now without too much difficulty. You can use a standard Gen AI LLM. We're talking about Copilot, ChatGPT, Claude, to help with disclosure generation from researchers. So you can create a market-ready disclosure from meeting notes, from draft papers automatically. And it's much more useful than something the researcher may generate themselves. You can also use AI to assess those disclosures from the point of view of a technology transfer office. So market readiness, patentability, TRL level, etc., whatever your concerns are. In perhaps a little bit more controversially, you can also use LLMs for legal review. This is contentious in my house anyway, because an LLM will throw up about 95% of the issues that you're going to have with the draft. It cuts considerably the time you spend reviewing documents and the time you spend drafting documents. And then you also use LLMs for the standard TTO activities, creating marketing flyers, bespoke emails to companies, etc. So those are the things that you can do right now. But the next slide talks about things that are a little bit more complex, or they sound a little bit more complex, but you can get there very quickly. You can create GPT personas for whatever bottleneck you're going through at that time. So you can create a financially literate persona, a negotiation expert, a medical device expert, a microfluidics expert. Whatever you need, you can create a specific assistant to help you through your use case. You can even create a contrarian to get you around the positivity bias that we often find in GPTs. You can also outsource the entire thing to third-party vendors. We use a a platform from a company called TradeSpace. They look at or they look after IP from disclosure all the way through to licensing. They're not the only such company, but it's well worth having a look to see what's out there. We're also building our own funding application tools. So we have a commercialization fund that we have multiple applications from, successful and unsuccessful, with our colleagues in Trinity College and University of Galway. And we're building a tool that will help inform future applications in order to make them more successful. The future outlook in terms of AI, it's not going anywhere. It's not going back into the box. Eventually, it'll be integrated into all of the tools that we use as standard through Google or Microsoft Office. But it's important that you get familiar with them, because you're leaving a lot of opportunity on the table if you don't familiarize yourself and play around with these tools. They can make your life a lot easier.
Fascinating. Thank you very much, Peter. And it's a very interesting new approach. I'm really tempted to ask a lot of follow-up questions at that point. And I like this idea that what you said, that it's not going to go back into the box. So we better learn how to use it and use it in order to liberate resources and time from the tech transfer offices. But before going to the follow-up questions, last but not least, we have Brechte Vrienengoer. I hope I said the name correct, manager of the Knowledge Transfer Office at Wageningen University and Research in the Netherlands. Wageningen University and Research joined forces with other universities of the Netherlands, and together you have developed the deal term principles. How does this new coordinated approach of the deal term principles facilitate spin-off creation and support commercialization of research results, Brechte?
Yes, so a lot of us spend time on dealing with the spin-off companies. They want access to our IP, and well, we have to make arrangements for that. And by aligning forces with all the universities, but also with the university medical centers, as well as other research institutes, we streamlined and we professionalized the way we handle this IP arrangements. And the principles that we set out, they allow us to speed up the process and accelerate commercialization, while also providing clarity to all the stakeholders involved. So it creates trust because of this clarity. It creates flexible deal structures. So basically 85% of all the deals is already is set. We know what's going to happen. And the 20%, that's the negotiation part. And for that, we created and simplified deal structures, which are on the slide. So there are multiple ways how you can structure a deal, and we came back to 3 that we mostly use. So it's either equity, it's either a royalty-based payment or a success-based payment, or a combination of both, which makes it a hybrid deal. And for equity, we have set the bandwidth, so it's either between the 10 and 25% of equity. It's always fully dilutive and a minority. But in practice, we see that it's between 10 and 50%. So we know what to expect. For royalty, you see that it's an average for a TRL level 4, maybe 5. It's an average up to 5%. But importantly, we now know that these are the deal structures, so there are no exit fees, no transfer fees, no signing fees. So it's because of this clarity, it creates trust with the investors community as well as the founders community. And it allows us to quickly make deals, but also understand how we can improve the public interest for us and create societal impact, because that's in the end what we want. And on the next slide, you see that it's not just the principles that we've set out, that's where it starts. So now we all have the same understanding and the same drive. And because of this, we are able to create a toolkit with templates that everybody can use, term sheets, shareholder agreements. And the interesting thing is this whole process was not just by the universities. We also included the founder community as well as the VC community to contribute, so that what we create in the end also works for them. And for example, the shareholder agreement was created by Capital Waters with input from us. And Capital Waters is an organization that really wants to create open source documents for the investment community. So by lining up, and this is the starting point, we only see more opportunities of collaborating and standardizing.
Thank you. Thank you, Brechte. it's really great to see how this whole landscape has been taken care of, and it's very nice that you have the Dutch universities on board. But as you said, that you went to the other side also to see that makes sense also to the investors, and you invited everybody to sit around this table. This is a very nice way to see how you facilitated electoral asset management there. Now we have our introductory round of questions, and I think this is about time for a second round now. And I can address maybe two of you with the same questions and try to see as your
agreement guide, which we always hear from our stakeholders is really, really useful in translating the research into economic benefit ultimately, and for patents, etc., licensing. This is really, really useful. But I think Peter can probably talk much more in detail about that kind of format. What in terms of learning, what we've done over the last 2 years, and with our maybe broader approach towards the ecosystem, we've of communicating with the communities and learning what are actually the needs of the Austrian stakeholders, and maybe not just the Austrian stakeholders, also the European stakeholders who have quite similar needs as well. So building up this toolkit beyond these maybe contract templates, which are really, really helpful, but sort of building beyond that the ways we can speak to our stakeholders successfully, and building out the work program for the NCPIP to facilitate the translation of this idea of having this broader societal and economic impact through research results. Maybe
Yes, this is great to see that you try to harmonize the way you address the whole research innovation community in communities actually in Austria, and understand what are the needs, and indeed they're not much different from the needs of the rest of Europe. So that equally applies for Peter. I mean, you can give us some examples from the Irish environment, and also some cases about actual impact that you had.
Yes, so there are so many initiatives. We sometimes confuse ourselves when we're working on them as to which initiative we're working on at that particular time and what rules apply. And I think it's important and positive that happens. The more experimentation, the more likely you're going to find something that works. There is no magic bullet for any of this. There's no magic solution, no magic single initiative that I can share with everybody that will solve everybody's problems. But by constant experimentation, by constantly rolling out new schemes, you will find things that work and things that don't work, and you need to adjust accordingly. Where the IP protocol and the templates work well, it's fast and it's transparent. That's the benefit for that. But the initiative that works best in the Irish system, in my opinion, would be an Enterprise Ireland funded scheme called a commercialisation fund. So it's getting really deep into a solution rather than a holistic view, but it's a significant amount of funding for a particular idea to bring it from proof of concept to the point where it can be licensed into an investor-ready spin-out within about 12 to 18 months. We like it because it works so well, and it's created a substantial amount of high-performance startups from the university system in Ireland. I think that kind of focused attention to individual ideas is something that is welcome and should be replicated more often. I'd welcome hearing about other schemes like that in Europe.
Thank you. Indeed, replicating best practices, it's the aim of the knowledge valorization ecosystem, basically, and the knowledge valorization platform is for that. And everything that is really worth, and as you said, there are a lot of activities that you have to try them, and if they're successful, fantastic. If they're not, then you just need to readjust. And it is good that something which is proven, that has been demonstrated to all countries, and then, if possible, even make it in a tailored way, replicable to their own research innovation systems or communities. I have another question here for Breche, Peter, and the question is that when you use a standardized approach, and you both mentioned standardized approaches in your cases, for managing the intellectual assets, how do you balance the interest of the university, the researchers, the business, the investors, in a fair and effective way? I think it's a very difficult balance to strike, and we all think that the tech transfer offices are kind of acrobats in this situation. But I would like Brit here first to let us know how you do it in Netherlands.
I think it's a nice question. To start off, I don't think we have to balance the interest, because I think we have the same interest. So in the end, we want the technology to reach the market, and for that we need investable companies and dedicated entrepreneurs. So we need to incentivize them, and we have to share our perspective. So I think it's more balancing the perspective than it is balancing the interests. How we do this with this framework? Well, it allows the university to get some income for the IP that was created. It holds ownership of the IP, but the spin-off company gets full access rights to it, and perhaps an option to acquire the intellectual property upon reaching clear milestones. And of course, clarity here is very important. So it would be reaching a type of investment like 500,000 euros or sales, so that they can show that they are commercializing and being sustainable businesses. For the founders, there is revenue sharing involved, or they can get an equity stake in the company for future value they create, so not for past value, but if they contribute to the success of the company, they will benefit from it as well. And for the investors, well, they have clarity on what the deal will look like, so it creates trust, and in the end, we all benefit with a faster process. So I think in that way, the guidelines and the templates really help everyone involved.
That's great. Indeed. If things are clear, then trust normally is easier to build. What's your view on that, Peter?
I don't disagree with anything that Brecht has said. In the Irish system, and I think it's the same with everybody else, the researchers are awarded through the institutional IP policy. And the IP protocol gives industry clarity on access rights and ownership and revenue sharing. So the researchers get rewards from returns, the industry gets speed and clarity, and the university gets to safeguard the long-term value of the IP for the public use. So it's a case of being very transparent from the outset, and that's why these policies are useful in that regard.
But that's very interesting indeed, and you all stressed out that if things are clear, and you put a lot of effort in making things clear and standardized for your all stakeholders, it's important. But things are clear for the community, things are clear for the industry, things are clear for the researchers. Now the question comes without much effort. How do you incentivize then your researchers to go that path? Because most of the researchers would like to stay in their labs, but we want to bring more research, therefore researchers, into the creation of spin-offs.
You need to have generous IP policies in your institution that rewards the researcher for engaging with you. And it's also important, we have these policies, and we were talking about this earlier, we have these policies, but it's important not to be too rigid about how they're applied. There's no long-term value in being lavishly adherent to a policy and leaving a good deal on the table. So there needs to be a little bit of flexibility in how everything is applied, as long as the principles are clear and any derogation from the rules is clearly outlined, and the reason for that derogation. But researchers should be incentivized through a generous IP policy.
All right. How about you, Brigitte, on that? How you do incentivize and how do you support with initiatives your research?
Well, I agree with Peter, but I think the most scientists are not really motivated by funding. So a lot of our schemes see, okay, you get part of the revenue back if ever we generate revenue, of course. That's also a topic for a different discussion. But I think we can help them by streamlining the procedures and helping them through the process, because we do this every day and we know what is coming. But for most people involved in a license deal or a spin-off trajectory, it's a once-in-a-lifetime activity. So the procedures that might be clear are still new to them, and they will remain new to them. So it's up to us to explain better how it will work and how it can work and support that. In the Netherlands, each university has a knowledge transfer office that offers guidance in these type of procedures, but also templates and tools to help them and facilitate them. We have incubators, and the incubators, they offer more business support, so like business planning or networking with mentors, a relationship with investors. Everything we try to make it as easy as possible. And we also accept that they can remain in the lab. So you don't have to become the entrepreneur yourself to be entrepreneurial, but they need to take the first step. And the easier we make it for them to take that step, the more output we will see.
Thank you, indeed. That's a very good approach, that you don't want to take them completely out of the lab, but they need to do the first step. And as we heard, you all provide incentives for them to do that, and be generous also with the approach. Before we go to the questions coming from the audience, I have a last question for Elizabeth. And in a fast-changing world, how can transfer offices, knowledge transfer, technology transfer offices, and professionals stay up to date and ensure that they provide fit-for-purpose services to the stakeholders?
Well, I believe that it would be really helpful, and I'm sure this happens quite a lot already, and will depend on the university, but the close collaboration between the TTOs and the grant offices will be really, really helpful. We're seeing a lot of development in the new work programs where the term knowledge valorization is coming through. In a number of work programs already, it's just becoming more used and more widespread. And I think an alignment between the grant offices and the TTOs will be really helpful, so in terms of reaching the researchers really well that might not already be involved in that type of activity. And I think maybe in terms of moving the focus to this broader idea of utilizing not just IP but intellectual assets more broadly, and this whole idea around knowledge valorization, it will be helpful to talk to rectors' offices and make sure that this becomes the mission of the TTOs. So it's, I guess, talking to your strategic level in your university to get this attention for this additional activity to become part of your everyday business. So I think that would be helpful. From the observations we've made in the workshops we've conducted, it's often the question is, have we got scope to do this in the TTO? And it's just sort of trying to expand this a little bit further.
Thank you. Indeed, I think we have discussed already together in the past that some top-down approaches on that are useful in that sense to change the everyday life of a tech transfer or knowledge transfer office, which is true. Many thanks to all of you for these insights. And now I think it's time to turn to the questions from our audience online. And one more time for the audience online, if you haven't used your Slido, please use it, submit your questions, so we have a bit of time to have our excellent speakers reply to your questions. So I will start with the first question from the audience. The first question is for you, Peter. Isn't it dangerous to put sensitive info about inventions into AI in terms of safeguarding IP and data protection? For example, not having data passed on to the companies owing the LLMs and internal rules?
I think the risks in AI are overstated. They make fantastic headlines. Nobody wants to read an article that says it's probably fine. Okay, so it's always the negative story will always get a click. In terms of using an LLM in your daily work, you should absolutely use a paid LLM. You should turn off the training option so that your query does not train the model. After that, you have to trust the terms and conditions are what the terms and conditions are. The problem with innovation has always been not that people want to steal your ideas, but that nobody's listening to you and nobody wants your ideas. I wish we had so many ideas that were of such a high quality that OpenAI or Microsoft or Google were just looking to steal them, but that's not the case. We are still screaming into the void with our disclosures, with our ideas, and the value is created in trying to commercialize them. I don't think it's likely that using an LLM, even a free one, even one that would train the model, will damage the commercial prospects of your idea. It's extremely unlikely. National security issues are a separate story, but for the standard TTO activities, I think it's vanishingly unlikely that you could create trouble for yourself. If I were going to try to create trouble for myself, I don't know how I would do it. That is how difficult it would be.
That's a very good answer. So I guess that the internal rules is exactly what you said, not the free versions and switch off the learning, the training mode of the machine. Well, that's very useful. Then I have a question for Elizabeth. And how do you engage researchers and make them aware of opportunities and pitfalls of IP valorization and transfer?
Thank you. I can only speak for Austria, and for example, the example from the FFG, who I work for, we have a ongoing strategic dialogue with the universities, the state-funded universities, that help us continue this conversation with them, and we bring to the table increasingly the idea of knowledge valorization, IP valorization, and we highlight the benefit that can be found in that, and trying to engage them in that topic. So we would go again through intermediaries to our partners and communicate that way. We have the activities the NCPIP offers with information events. We have some upcoming webinars around this topic that are open for people to follow, and it's a general information sharing activity that we mostly focus on.
Okay, thank you. I think that when it comes to IP valorization, I think there's really more also to be done and communicated from the Commission, especially when I think you mentioned it before that now that valorization, the term of valorization exists in all proposals from the Commission for the next framework program for research and innovation, but also in the proposal for the Competitiveness Fund. So it will be quite interesting to see how that translates also from Commission initiatives. I have a question for Britt here, what should researchers consider when deciding whether an equity, royalty, or hybrid deal fits best? Technology readiness, market sector, investor expectations?
This is an excellent question. I forgot to mention, but in the deal terms, it's the TTO that decides the deal. So the options exist, but the university can choose which of the options they will put forward. And then indeed, they look at the technology readiness level, the value of the IP for the business model of the company. So whether the business model is solely based on the IP or the IP is just an element in the company. The market sector, whether it's a high, low, or medium margin in terms of pricing. And of course, the cap table in total should be in such a way constructed that it allows for future investors to join. So I think those are the most important aspects to look at.
Indeed. So yes, that was very crucial to say that it's the office that chooses which kind of deal puts on the table, and of course you take all of these indicators into account. Let me continue with you on how do you finance IP in Wageningen?
Yes.
And well, the question from the audience is very, very simple. Who pays for it?
Who pays for it? It depends. Of course, in principle, it's the university. So knowledge valorization is one of the core tasks of the university. So it should be in the budgets of the groups as well as the faculties and the central departments. In practice, it's usually from the research groups. So either the group pays for the patent. We prefer to have the patents on projects. So if a project is running, the IP costs are included, but sometimes you don't have a project running or the project budget is doesn't have an IP budget in there. Then we will use university funds if we think it's a strategic investment. And the cost can also come from specific grants we get from the government, or we have an internal proof of concept funds. This is internal money that we allocate, and the IP filing can also be paid with those type of grants.
Okay, so many options indeed.
Not enough, but
yes, I like this, that it's not enough. It means that you have more IP to protect and finance rather than empty drawers. So I guess that you're filling up your drawers, and hopefully, of course, you take them out and then you find ways to fund them. And I see that it's the similarity with Ireland, that having a dedicated fund for that goes deep into the management of the intellectual asset really helps get things done faster to the market. I have one more question to Peter before I go back to all of you. Is there any easy approach to determine the market potential of inventions in the field of basic research?
There is an easy approach, but I'm not sure if it's any good. So I assume it is in AI. You can run a deep research report in most LLMs that will assess, reassess, and feedback its answer for accuracy to a point where you have a 30-page report on the market readiness of this particular piece of IP. Nothing beats talking to your customer. Okay, so the LLM will do its best. It'll spit out a report, but whether that report stands up to reality, there's no way to determine that. The only way you're going to know if there's a market is to talk to customers and see what their problems are and see if your solution fits their problem. AI can do a lot, but it can't do the basics. It can't do it can do the basics. It can't do the difficult thing that we all try to put off, which is picking up the phone and talking to customers. That's still the gold standard.
Well, I take that you need to do the effort and talk to the people and go out there.
Exactly.
Then I have a question to all of you. I think it is the last question that we will take from the Slido. How do you work with foreground IP generated through collaborative European projects? So how Commission actually comes into play here. So we'll start with Elizabeth.
I think I have to pass this over to the colleagues who can probably answer it much better than I do.
Okay.
Much more experience in that area.
Rebecca?
I'm very sorry, but this would be a legal answer saying it depends. It depends on the project. So preferably you would have a collaborative project with a partner in there that's going to commercialize the technology. So in that case, you ensure that that partner has all the rights and the granting to your IP, both the foreground as well as the background, so that they can. If you come up with something and you did not foresee it could be commercialized, then you have to make arrangements. There are multiple ways to do so, depending on the ambitions and the level of commercialization the partners can encounter. But in all cases, I think it's important that IP is identified and screened. The tech transfer officers can help with that, and that you identify the right path forward, and that all the partners involved agree to that. And of course, in the end, you need to make those arrangements. But again, making arrangements is usually not the most complicated part if you exactly know what each party wants and can contribute to the future success of the innovation. But in terms of deal making, you will do something similar as with the spin-off company. You have to set friend fees. So you would like them to pay for historic patent costs if they were not put on the project. You would like them to take over the IP costs if there are any, because as a university you can't keep paying for those. We just mentioned we struggle already with paying for the IP. And then you ask a fair market fee for the price, which is usually a royalty or a success-based fee, or it can also be an annual license fee. So there are many ways of dealing with this. But it's good to make these arrangements in the beginning, if possible. However, you usually don't know yet all the details you need to know when you start a project.
Well, that's a good then suggestion now that we're thinking the new framework program to make things done very clearly in advance with collaborative projects. And Peter, from your side.
Brekta's answer was complete. The natural licensee is going to be the collaborative partner. If the collaborative partner passes on the IP, you have to pick up the phone and try to find a new partner. But generally, the IP that's created in these projects is so bespoke for that particular consortium, for those companies' needs, that we tend to license to them and not to anybody else. And everything else that Brekta said was exactly as in Ireland.
Exactly. So it's good at least to see that the practice is the same and the effort also is the same regardless of the environment or the country. So many thanks to our participants online for these questions and of course to our speakers for their answers. And now before we wrap up, I would like to ask our speakers to give us one final key message. And I will make it a bit more easy for you because I would like to narrow it down because messages can be on many things. But since it seems that we're in a clock ticking, mode, and there's no time to waste. We need to improve European competitiveness, and everything is about competitiveness these days. We believe that knowledge valorization is key to that. So, in your view, what is the most important action to move forward? Elizabeth, please.
Thank you. I think it's the most important thing is collaboration. I think even this talk just today has illustrated that there's so much expertise in Europe. The colleagues here have so eloquently answered all these questions around IP. They really know what this is all about. I think we really need to talk to each other. We need to find a means of collaborating really well together. And I think ultimately that's the way that we can become a more competitive Europe by doing so.
Thank you. Peter.
Embracing IP, or embracing AI rather, embracing AI and IP. Perfect is a myth. I think people are waiting until things are perfect before they use AI in their daily work processes. We're never going to get to a point where everything is ready and everyone agrees that it's okay to use it now. I think you just have to get stuck in and play and see what works with you. Start simple and move from there.
Thank you, Peter. Breki?
I think we need to be fast. So businesses move faster than research institutes do. So whatever we can do to speed up the processes of commercialization or finding partners will help, and AI will play a big role in this. But I think setting collaborative standards and using the same language, the same frameworks, that will help as well. You heard we're starting on this. We can speed up, especially for those who are still adopting this. We are willing to share all the information we have. And I think for a next step, I would love clear guidelines on what a fair market fee could be, because the 80% of the deal now has been standardized and 20% of negotiations is about what is fair. So any clarity we can get in terms of how much equity, how much royalty, what are benchmarks, would be a helpful way forward.
Thank you very much. That's very important, what you mentioned. I think that we all take good note of that. And thank you all for your answers here and the final messages and sharing your experiences. And I think that we can do more and better in managing intellectual assets. So I would like to thank the audience. A big thank you to all of you for joining our knowledge valorization talk today. We hope that we have enjoyed this talk and we're taking away new ideas about how to manage your intellectual assets, or how to use AI in your daily practices, or how do you convince the hierarchy and the authorities to embrace valorization more. And I take the opportunity also to point that we have a new event, a flagship conference on knowledge valorization that will take place in Brussels and online. So it's a hybrid event on the 13th of November. And we invite you also to mark in your calendars that event, and we hope to see you there. It was a pleasure to be here today to moderate this talk, and I wish you all a great afternoon. Thank you very much.